Well, President Trump has approved attack plans on Iran, but he hasn't made a final decision on whether to strike the country. That's according to a senior intelligence source. It comes as strikes escalate between Israel and Iran. Overnight, an Iranian missile slammed into a hospital in southern Israel, causing extensive damage and injuries. Another missile hit a high-rise building and several residential buildings in Tel Aviv, injuring at least 40 people. Meanwhile, Israel carried out strikes on Iran's Arak heavy water reactor in its latest attack on Tehran's extensive nuclear program. And there's confusion over whether the U.S. government will help U.S. citizens evacuate Israel. The U.S. ambassador to Israel posted this message on X, saying the U.S. embassy is working on evacuation flights and cruise ships. However, the State Department says there's no announcement about evacuations at this time. We've got team coverage for you this morning. Natalie Brand is at the White House monitoring the president's actions, and Taurean has the pushback on U.S. involvement from some lawmakers. But we start with CBS News Middle East reporter Courtney Kealy. Courtney, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us. First off, as the U.S. weighs whether or not to get involved, Iran and Israel trading attacks right now. Where do things stand with the fighting?
Well, this is breaking news. What's happening in southern Israel, the largest hospital there in the town of Beersheba. Now they're evacuating people with minor injuries. Most of the hospital had been evacuated. Iran said it was targeting a military site next to the hospital, but it was a direct hit on the hospital. And then we're hearing that Israel's defense minister with fiery rhetoric saying we are going to continue striking strategic targets in Iran.
Now, Courtney, I want to ask about the U.S. has several military bases in the Middle East, thousands of troops stationed there. Are any of those potentially at risk as things escalate between Israel and Iran?
Well, they're always vulnerable, but this is, the Fifth Fleet is in Bahrain. We have U.S. warships out in the Mediterranean, in the Red Sea. We have fighter jets, F-16s, F-22s, F-35s that would move to the region. But so far, no threats of any hits. We haven't seen any action. We know that Hamas and Hezbollah have been pretty much destabilized, and we're not seeing anything from them. So this is really Iran attacking Israel and Israel attacking Iran. Israel making the first move and then Iran retaliating. But this continues to escalate. And
as it does escalate, do Israel and Iran have the capability to continue this level of fighting?
Right. Like, are they going to, does the Operation Iron Dome, do the Patriot battle missiles, defense systems, is there enough to continue? Most likely, but here I am hedging my bets because we're all waiting to see what's next. And Iran, with this direct hit, really shows that their ballistic missiles are penetrating and hitting. A soft target, a hospital. Meanwhile, the internet is out in Iran, but I've gotten in touch with somebody there. Tehran is pretty much shut down. Some smaller cities are operating. Chrome, X, all of that is off. So we're not really hearing from Iranian people right now. There's no refugee situation of people flooding the borders right now. People just enduring these airstrikes like people in Israel are too.
All right, Courtney Kealy, thanks for your reporting. We appreciate it. And CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand is tracking the latest on this from the White House. Natalie, good morning. The president has reportedly approved attack plans for Iran, but hasn't fully committed. Yesterday, he told reporters, I may do it, I may not do it. So where do things stand right now?
Good morning, Michael. Well, sources say that the president has held off on this decision of whether to join Israel offensively to give space for Iran to agree to come to the negotiating table. And we know that the president, what he wants is for Iran to give up its nuclear program. Now, yesterday, when pressed by reporters on next steps, he also signaled that the door was still open to diplomacy, saying, it's not too late. Here's more of what he had to say about this decision and deliberation ahead.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other.
And in a sign, a possible push for diplomacy, CBS News has confirmed that Iran's foreign minister is scheduled to meet in Geneva tomorrow with foreign ministers of the UK, France, and Germany. We know that those leaders have been looking to de-escalate this situation. He will also be meeting with the EU foreign policy chief. And Iran's foreign minister, in kind of a lengthy statement, also noted that Iran has so far only retaliated against the Israeli regime and not those who are aiding and abetting it, a seeming reference to the U.S., which, of course, provides so much military support to Israel. This statement also saying that Iran remains committed to diplomacy. So we'll have to wait and see whether these talks lead to anything, Michael.
All right, Natalie Brand at the White House, thank you. Well, as the fighting between Israel and Iran enters its 7th day, Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered to help broker an end to the conflict. The Russian leader called the situation delicate, but said he believes a solution can be found. He says Moscow's proposals have been shared with Israel, Iran, and the U.S. However, President Trump appeared to brush off Putin's offer to mediate, telling him to instead focus on settling his country's war with Ukraine.
He actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later.
And on the Ukraine front, Putin told reporters in St. Petersburg yesterday he's ready to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but only in a final phase of negotiations. And as President Trump signals increasing U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel conflict, top Senate Democrats are pushing back. Lawmakers released a statement saying they, quote, will not rubber stamp military intervention that puts the United States at risk. The United States cannot sleepwalk into a third war in as many decades. Lawmakers also zeroed in on the escalating conflict during an intense hearing with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth yesterday. This was his response after facing heated questions on the Pentagon's next move.
If I had or I had not, I wouldn't disclose that in this forum, Senator. My job, our job, Chairman and I, at all times, is to make sure the president has options and is informed of what those options might be and what the ramifications of those options might be.
I appreciate.
And I want to bring in CBS News Congressional reporter Taurean Small live on Capitol Hill. Taurean, good morning. So how are other Democrats reacting?
Yeah, good morning, Michael. There appears to be pretty much a unified front from the Democratic Party, or from the Democratic Party here on the Hill. We saw senators pretty much in line categorically denouncing President Trump's actions and potential actions and potentially moving the U.S. forces to be involved in this conflict, saying that it is the power that rests solely within Congress to declare war. We saw quite a bit of exchange, especially during that Hegseth hearing that you just showed there, between Senator Shaheen of New Hampshire and the Defense Secretary about what type of latitude he's giving the president to move on this. But I want to toss to sound we got from Senator Tim Kaine on our show yesterday as he discussed where Democrats stand with this.
It would be foolishness of the highest order for the U.S. to be involved in a war with Iran. We should not. This would be an unnecessary war. I think it would be catastrophic for the U.S. to be involved.
And top Senate Democrats, or Senate Intel Democrats, are also a bit confused as to why the White House, the Trump administration, is breaking with its own intelligence community, as we saw in a testimony from Tulsi Gabbard in March, where she said she didn't believe that Iran is close to obtaining a nuclear weapon. The Trump administration has now moved where they believe that intelligence is now a seemingly contradiction from that testimony, which Democrats are quick to point out.
Now, Taurean, you mentioned it. The president can't declare war without congressional approval, but history shows us there are ways around that. So what is Congress's power here to prevent U.S. involvement?
Well, we're seeing from both chambers resolutions, war powers resolutions that would essentially handicap the president from moving forward without its authorization. I think the most interesting one is from Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican, but he has bipartisan backing with some of the more far-left members of the chamber. We saw members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus signing on to that bill. Senator Tim Kaine himself also put forth a war powers resolution. The issue here with any movement of that is Republicans hold both the House and the Senate. So whether or not there would be enough momentum for leadership to take it up is still to be seen, but Congress is expressing, and in a bipartisan fashion, dissatisfaction with how the president is moving and trepidation about whether or not there's implications for U.S. military to get involved further.
All right, Taurean Small, thank you very much.